Howdy, all of you delicious people. I'm here today to review Euphoria from HBO Max, if I didn't say that in the first iteration of this. So, Euphoria, I guess a lot of people, I would say that my assumption of this very first pilot episode was correct. That we have some shock value going on into the show. So much so that they kind of forget that there needs to be a story here that is just like, hey, balls to the wall shock value. And I say balls to the wall as a joke, especially when it comes to this freaking episode. Uh, I guess really for this episode, I should come on here and say, oh, this is far too weird. This has gone out of control. Oh my god, they're just really trying to lose their viewership by installing this kind of episode and whatever, what have you. For me, honestly, I've seen a lot of bizarre films and shows. And when really looking at it, I will eventually probably see at some point a bizarre movie or show still into the near distant, sometimes future. And so when I've gone on to watch this episode, I'm just like, well, we have some patterns that I'm starting to see happening here. Patterns that I guess are to just be like, why go so much more into this? Why does it seem like all these people are to be freaking disturbed? I guess, is what I could plop down. Like, oh, these people are disturbed for whatever reason. We have it to where Kat in this episode is to say it's like, oh, no, 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 I don't want that to go out there. But then all of a sudden she is to then realize, like, well, wait a minute. People could make money off of certain things. And, well, I'm like, oh my God, Kat. Um, Bravo for, I guess, you to have that confidence in yourself. Because we kind of want this, we kind of have this girl that is starting to be like more and more uh, like empowering herself, so to speak, uh, with the way in which that she is to kind of go into the way that she's going to go about things, seemingly in this episode. It seems that we have Nate, who is kind of more focused in this episode than Rue. We still have some Rue things going on here about her going into NA and eventually her going and talking to Lexi, and because Rue had gone on to get uh, a sample of urine from Lexi from the last episode, and now we have this episode where Lexi is to have it be that Lexi may not be there the next time Rue is going to need a sample, so to speak. So, and I forgot about who the person it was that she was borrowing this sample from. So yeah, but the main focus is on here is with Nate and how eventually he is to go on and try to win back Maddie. And also we have Matt. We end up just finding that this guy is to just be just a kind of character that you're like, okay, at some point this character just might go on and eventually murder a man or hurt people, and really we have it to where I guess him just going and seeing something that he shouldn't have seen from a certain collection, let's just say, for cryptic sense, because Nate is going to be stumbling on a collection that he really should not have seen because he's far too young to see this. It's like this is kind of like Dexter, where like we had like Dexter who was to have a son called Harrison, and he was to do this thing called being bathed in blood, where or born in blood, where We have a kid far too young seeing something that he definitely shouldn't, and that kind of triggers these violent tendencies. Eventually, having this character go and seek therapy, and then eventually he is to be one way or another turned into some kind of killer. Uh, this story, we have this character that is to see this collection and eventually turn into a guy that uh, we more and more just like, oh, so he's doing that, or oh, he's that kind of guy, or oh, he like, we're gonna see something come out of this because he is to go on and to have done this part of the show and so on and so forth. So with that said, but we're still also tying both Chris and Cassie in this episode. Uh, but I guess it's like we have both Chris and Cassie, or kind of have this like odd kind of situation where it's like, I guess when Cassie is to want something, Chris isn't to want to provide that something. But when Chris is to want something, then I guess Cassie's gonna have to deliver. Uh, so like that just seems kind of like I'm kind of wondering like where eventually this is going to head at some point between these two. But yeah, but other than that, odd odd kind of random bag of stuff that of course is to be for a lot of people have a certain way to describe this episode. I'll just be like, well, uh, HBO's got to have some kind of content, I guess, and so this ends up being that kind of content. Uh, so like if they're going this far this quickly, I'm just like, man, what are the other episodes going to be like? What are the like where? How far can you really go with this episode at this point? Now that they've like set the bar so freaking high with all the stuff that they're doing in in this show, uh, they've kind of really set the bar to just like where can this show go next after the lavish ways of just uh, like eventually like your audience is gonna become numb to all of this shock value, so to speak, as I have to just have a name for it, because like it's not all just like, oh, topless or bottomless people. No, it's like it's different than that. Like they keep going into things. I'm like, you know what? Out of all the part of the show, there's one thing that really I wouldn't mind if they would just not go into anymore. But they like keep like, no, we got to keep going on to this story. Like as if people are going to be like needing them to go further into that. I don't want them to. I just don't. But anyways, let's just go into that double five. Let's just go into spoilers about this one. Um, so for people who are to enjoy this show, I don't blame you. Maybe there's something that you get out of this one way or another. Maybe it's your kind of empowerment or your kind of something or another. I'm not going to question anything. I'm just going to review the thing. And because, hey, maybe it's like, uh, maybe it's something that is to get you wound up or which I don't know, question whatever. But hey, man, freaking like I've seen all kinds of shows. And it's okay at the end of the day because freaking hey, whatever fits your fancy, whatever fits the thing that you need, and whatever. Uh, Because hey, freaking like we all watch weird, odd stuff, so might as well just go out of our way to say that we've seen this. Like I've seen American Gods, and American Gods is a very odd show. Especially there's to be this one episode where we just have our the main character who, God, what was his name? Uh, the main guy who ends up going to a house and all of a sudden sees a number of pictures of his guy or of his wife's affaired man's schwanz all over the house. Like he used to continue to turn around at every corner and see some picture that's been framed like all over the house, and everywhere he turns, he just sees another picture of it, realizing that his wife has had an affair, and for some reason, like in his mind, I guess. Shadow Moon, there we go. He's to just kind of see these pictures, or we really just have uh, the gods messing with him, so to speak. So, yeah, so it gets to the point where I've seen all kinds of odd and very dark and gritty shows and movies and whatever. So let's go out of our way to go into this one and just spoil it, and let's go out of our way to get out of here, so I can call this a day. So, spoiler time, spoiler time. It's about that time again to spoil this episode. So, kind of having a hard time thinking exactly where to start with this one because there's two long stories and there's a bunch of like smaller bits and pieces of stuff. I guess any of the Matt stuff or Maddie stuff all tie into Nate. So really, we just have Cat's story, and we have God, what is the other girl? Oh, Jules, and her story, and then we have like Chris and Cassie. So I guess I'll quickly go through. Let's cover the Chris and Cassie stuff. So Chris and Cassie are going on, and I think Chris is to be at Cassie's place, and so it seems that Chris is going on and talking to Cassie's, I'm assuming, mother, and so we go on and have Chris talk about stuff, and so all of a sudden we eventually have both Chris and Cassie who are kind of alone, and Cassie is to want to get to some humping, and Chris is just like, you know what, like I'm not ready right now, like, and so Cassie is just like, well, okay, and then they start watching TV because Chris is going on and on about him playing football and like how things aren't really working out with that because he is to like be doing so well, and the coach is just uh, like not really using Chris or not using Chris to his best benefit. And then Cassie is to want to just start to get on top of Chris, and Chris kind of pushes her off to the side, and be like, "Aren't you listening to anything that I'm saying?" And I think at that point, like Cassie was just trying to figure out a way to comfort Chris. Maybe that's the only thing that she knows how to do. That feels weird to say, but I don't know. So, but then Cassie is to go home later, and all of a sudden Chris is texting her, and he is to go on and say, it's like, well, hey, like, uh, it feels like this is now a time where I'm much more ready. Can you send me like pictures of yourself? Like, tell me what you're wearing, and so on and so. And so we have it to where Cassie is like, what the heck? So like afterwards, I guess like Cassie has to put on a show when Chris like wants, but like she can't get anything also when she wants it. It's kind of odd. Um, but I don't know. Let me know your interpretation upon that story. So let's go into the let's cover the cat stuff. So Cat is go on and eventually find that there's this video being passed around of Cat going with a guy at that party from the first episode. So Kat is like, oh my god, like this video is going out of me going with this guy. And so it doesn't seem like her face is being shown. So really, a lot of people would still assume that it's her because it's her body type or it's her whatever, which she kind of eventually turns around and uses that like against people. So Kat is to go on and meet with one of the boys who was to be with them the night before, who I believe, um, God, these guys are twins, and they look the same. Uh, I want to say that it was Troy, but I could be wrong about that. So it was either Troy or Roy. I'm not quite sure. Um, I'd like to say that it was Troy. So Kat is going on talking to one of these boys and mentioning that uh, she wants them to take the video down, and that also she wants them to also go on and say that it wasn't her, it was some other girl. So, like, still say that they did go ahead and do this act, but say that it was somebody else to kind of to kind of give them still credit, but to also kind of keep spreading this rumor that they had gone on and, like, okay, they're wanting to figure out who exactly this is, because everybody was to immediately think that it was Kat. And so Kat was to go on and eventually have this rumor being spread so much so that all of a sudden I think the is it the principal that gets involved? Because I'm gonna think that it's probably the principal. Yeah, it's Principal Hayes. Principal Hayes goes and takes Kat and brings her into office and is to tell her about this rumor. And so Kat is like, well, like Principal Hayes, how is it that you could have naturally assumed that I am the girl in this video? Is it because like uh, this woman is the size that she is? And Principal Hayes is like, well, I haven't even seen the video, and we have it to where Kat is uh, like how can you allow this to like go on in your school? Like this is uh like body shaming and so on and so forth. And so all of a sudden we have the principal like mortified, and he turns around and he tells Kat, it's like, well, like I'm gonna go on and try to figure out a way to just kind of take down this whole rumor and figure out the whole like thing of this, so I can kind of abolish this, so no one is to say this again, so on and so forth. And so Kat is to leave that office just feeling relieved that she has gone on to the highest person that she could that is going to resolve this whole thing, supposedly. So, but then we eventually have it to where Kat is to go on and try to find uh, this original video, and she finds out that it was taken down by copyright, and she was like, okay, what's going on? So it seems that all of a sudden we had it to where this site that she was on, some hub of some sort, because heaven forbid you say certain names on YouTube, because eventually they'll be like, bloop, he said this. How could he? So kind of to go on and decide, you know what, maybe I should go on and sign up and post my own kind of thing, so to speak. And Kat was to go on and talk to this boy before that technically is to be uh, a minor that is in that video, and so more than likely the guys posting these videos could go to jail for that. And immediately the guy fires back with, well, we're both the same age, so technically it's not what you're saying it is. So now Kat is to turn around and go off and still being a minor and deciding to go onto this site and is probably going to do a number of things which I'm not quite sure what it will be, because really that doesn't 100% uh, like, I'm not going to be watching the episode just to find out what she does. There's other things going on in this show. There is. So no offense to Kat, no offense to that character. Like, I'm just gonna go ahead and see what exactly goes on, other than Kat, in the show. So with that said, I think that's all of these small stories in this episode, but I'm sure there might be a number of other things that go on in this show, and we'll get to that. And I'm trying to think here if there is any other big things to cover. Okay, so let's get into the other two stories. So uh, I think we'll cover. I think we'll cover Nate's story now, because if anything, like, his story is possibly more complicated, and then we'll get into the Rue stuff to kind of finish up the show, the episode, the whatever. Because I think that's all the other stories. Let me know in the comments below after I go on to review this if I'm missing anything. If I'm obviously not going to go into heavy details about certain kind of things, or I'm going to skirt around certain kind of words, because of course, because when you are to curse, or when you are to go on and like go in and describe thoroughly and in depth about certain things, you get a ding onto YouTube, and it's like, oh, well, you're covering the show, and you're covering it in way too much detail, and so now your video is this now. And I'm like, really? Great. Hence why you just cover a show. So you just try to cover a show. So, but the one thing that I'll cover about Rue is when she's on this bus, we have Rue who's mentioning that there's one time she was to say that in this episode, when she's on this bus, that there was a time that I guess she would have gotten so high that she thought that she could be psychic. And all of a sudden we have like Rue on this bus, and she's just like, because she's just so high. I thought that was kind of like, man, that's an interesting way to open an episode. But let's get into the Nate stuff. So Nate, as a young kid, was to go on and find Father's Cal's collection of videos of sessions that he had had with certain, either, I guess, both men and women, of a certain way about them. So we go and have Nate watching these videos, and I guess immediately we have where Nate is to be possibly traumatized from these videos. And so Nate is to go on and is to eventually be in the locker room after a football game, where all of a sudden he is to see a number of guys who are to not exactly be shy about wearing towels around the locker room, having certain guys just smacking really just Nate on the shoulder pads, and they're not wearing a towel to their waist, so to speak. And I'm just like, okay, so we're seeing this now. All right, like this isn't gonna be like the wow, oh my god, what? Why are we seeing so much of this? Like, oh well, like, it's a locker room. So what if every guy's twig and berries is just swinging in the wind? So what? But yeah, like, I guess like, hey, we get we get some interesting things for men in one episode, and we get an interesting thing uh, for a number of other people, either women or maybe even possibly some men. Not judging. or whatever. It doesn't matter. Whichever. So we go on in this episode, and so Nate is to have been watching this collection of videos, and so Nate is to go on and be very picky about his girlfriend because I guess he hates body hair. To where eventually he is to see that Maddie is to be clean shaven throughout her body. And so from those videos of which that he had watched, he is to go on and want Maddie for a certain reason to protect her from all the bad guys out there, realizing that at some point that his own father could be a bad guy. But Nate is to go on and still do at some point go after Cal's office to just kind of like poke his head inside there, where Cal's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And Nate's like, "Whoa, well, I was gonna just say good night," and Cal's like, "Oh, good night." There is at one point that Cal is to go into Nate's room when he was younger and go and like tell him how supposedly in his mind the world works. And so we go on and have Nate that is going and being this star quarterback for the football team, and it seems that possibly for Nate that for possibly his father, it's like nothing is good enough, and even to where when they have this like family photo, it seems that Cal and his oldest brother, who is not Nate, is to seemingly be very distant and whichever, but I guess not distant enough to just put on a family photo for whatever reason. And they also go on and talk about Nate's mother. So we go on here and we have Nate, who is to date Maddie because I guess she has never been touched by a man before. Let's just say she's kind of very much possibly going to be uh, like Nate's first and vice versa. So we then have Nate, who is to try and win Maddie back over after that whole party from episode 1. And so we go on and we have Nate, who is, of course, and there's going to be a point where I'm going to put a pen in Nate's story because I'm going to go back to it when we go into another story that I completely forgot about, which is the Jules stuff, which is technically she has a little short thing in this show, this episode, so I'll cover that. So Nate is to go on and is to win back over Maddie, and they go bowling together. And so after they go on and they go bowling together, we have Nate who goes to Tyler's place, who is the guy who had went with Matty and gone on to do things in a pool. To really just have Maddie try to get Nate jealous, and it worked because Nate is to go and basically beat Tyler to death, with basically accusing Tyler of taking advantage of this girl because supposedly she was either unconscious or really she didn't agree to what Tyler was doing or something or other. It seems that Nate is to want to just say that any guy that is to look at Maddie is to possibly be this kind of predator or to eventually be a guy that he needs to take out or get rid of because at some point Maddie could be taken advantage of by some guy who is to be this creeper or whichever. to where we kind of play out this scenario where there's to be this older guy who is to zip tie Maddie up and put her in a trunk, and this guy is to get into his driver's seat, and Nate is to blow him away with a bullet from a gun. So I don't know if that actually happened or if that was just in Nate's own mind, but there's that for whatever reason. So Nate goes on and is to beat up Tyler to where we are assuming that Tyler is to be dead by the end of this beating. And so Nate goes on and is to now change his clothes to take Tyler's. And so he ends up going home, where he, of course, is to be texting somebody. And I'll get to that. So it seems that Jules is to go on, and for this day, we have it to where it seems that Rue and Jules are kind of hanging out, and so Jules is telling Rue, it's like, well, hey, I gotta get home because me and my dad are gonna have this family dinner with a capital F and a capital D, and so we go on and have Jules, who is at this dinner, and so all of a sudden we consistently have it where Jules is to get this this kind of text. I guess she might be on some dating app or some kind of something. And so we have it to where this shy guy is consistently texting her, kind of getting to know her, and so on and so forth. It seems like this guy is to seemingly be nice for whatever reason. And we're going to find out that there is going to be some odd-like things, I guess, from the very first episode that kind of reconnect here into this episode. So immediately thinking, like I think a lot of people are thinking that this shy guy is to probably be Cal, and we'll find out who that is by the end of my dialogue here. So we go on, and of course we have it to where Jules is going and eating with her father, and so he ends up, Jules ends up telling this person, like, hey, like, I'll go and talk to you later, I'm gonna go eat dinner, and he's like, okay, talk to you later. So we go on, and we have later where, of course, this person is to text her again, and Jules is to answer, having more dialogue, and so on and so forth. And so now, of course, we end up finding out who the other end of this dialogue is, and it's none other than Nate. And so Jules is to ask Nate, it's like, well, like, I don't even know what your actual name is. And so Nate is to go on and say that it's Tyler. So we naturally are probably going to assume here that at some point Nate is going to find Jules, because Jules, Nate is to probably figure out, is probably to be tied to Cal, because more than likely Cal had probably gone on and recorded another session fairly recently, finding out that this girl is to have been connected to probably his father. And so maybe that's why Nate is going out of his way to get to know this girl, or maybe there just might be an alternative reason for Nate kind of blowing up at this party, and this one girl was to go and cut herself, and maybe that just might be the weird, goofy thing that is to just intrigue Nate for whatever reason. Not quite sure. But the one thing that I also was to not mention in this episode is Nate was to go on and seemingly when he was to be very young was to really start going on and lifting weights heavily. Well, like, I don't know how heavily, because like we don't like say the specifics of it. We don't say like he worked out for like 2 hours a day every day for his whole life, and so on and so on. But it seems like this guy is going through some extraneous workouts, going and doing push-ups and bench reps and stuff like that. So like he's taking this seriously, and then he has to go on and do football and be this star quarterback and whichever. And so I think hopefully all the rest of this episode is to be covered, uh, to where I can just go on and talk about the ruse stuff. So Rue eventually is to go on and meet with Fezco, and it seems that Fezco is going to be meeting up with some uh, unsavory, I call them cats, but unsavory fellers, whatever. So, some guys who are to go on and easily want to just have somebody spend more money than what they actually have on a certain thing, because we have it to where we have some suspicions about Rue. So we have Rue, who is to go on and say that she is out with her drugs, and so of course she is to ask Fezco for a certain kind of drug. And Fezco is to say that he really wants this girl out because he's expecting people, and these kind of people are to not exactly be the people you really want to mess with here. So we go on here, and I think okay, I was wrong about that. Because I was going on and thinking like, oh yeah, this is the guy, and then no, turn around and just be like, wrong. So I'm still trying to find the name here to eventually kind of put a face to a name, so to speak. So we go on into this episode, and we have, of course, these guys come in, and we have it to where Fezco is to mention that Rue is to be his sister, supposedly. And we have this drug guy who's kind of like, your sister, huh? Really? So we go on, and we have this guy who's to put this kind of thing of drugs on this knife, and is telling this girl to uh, basically digest it, put it in her mouth and digest it. And because the guy has to mention, it's like, well, hey, like, have you ever got it to where you've basically like came like so hard that you can't see straight? Well, this will give you that kind of high. So we go on here and have all of a sudden Rue, who's kind of being pressured into taking this drug, and then once she does, she kind of falls over. And so now this guy is to go on and tell Rue, it's like, well, hey, like how much money do you have? Because I'm going to be asking for $300 here. And Rue is to not have that money. She's to only, I guess, have like 200. So we of course have this guy who's going on. It's like, well, like I'm gonna have to figure out how I can get that money, and uh, like it looks like I might have to get my money one way or the other. And so Fezco is just like, well, hey, like I'll give you the 300 right now. Like I'll take care of this. And so because Fezco was to be uh, kind of annoying this guy who's like, well, you know what? I'm gonna force you to give me double now. You're gonna give me 600. So now we have it to where Fezco is out $600 because of Rue in her stupidity. And Fezco was telling Rue, it's like, you know what? I could kill you right now. Like, and that's what he like told her before, like, because she was just staying into the place, just waiting for her to get her drugs. And so we're going to find out that there's maybe going to be some withdrawals from this drug. We're not quite sure yet. But we have Fezco putting a blanket over her. And so we go on and we have Rue who's like, I'm so happy, and Fezco's like, yeah, sure you are. So, because it's like Fezco like freaking protected her, and I don't think he's gonna really get anything out of this deal of basically protecting her because she'll probably not even know like what had actually happened, and so on and so forth. Like he'll probably won't even tell her about the whole $600 thing. So, it feels like I'm leaving something out here. Oh, we also have it to where Rue is to go into NA and is to have a guy named Ali speak at this meeting. And so it seems there are like points in time where we get some like flashes of Rue going into this anonymous meeting and so on and so forth, going and hearing stories from certain people. Uh, Maybe Rue is just kind of looking at these certain people to possibly get her next fix or figure out where is the next place to go. Or maybe she was to use these people to go and find more drugs. So, yeah, with that said, I think that covers a bulk of this episode. If there's something that I missed, because I'm sure there is, there might be some little detail somewhere of some name or something, because I'm still getting to know these characters 2 episodes in, and there's probably some names somewhere that I forgot, and whichever. Uh, but there's also some stuff that I don't want to go thoroughly into detail with, because there's some stuff that I'm obviously just like I don't think I'm gonna say this, uh, and plus also there's some stuff that YouTube like is gonna like freaking red flag me for heaven forbid I say any number of things because I've had it happen before. Uh, so why take the risk? And I know a lot of people are like, oh no, I think you can just say whatever, it'll be fine. Yeah, I've had that happen before, where like I would immediately think, oh, I can say anything, and who cares? Like, cuss words are fine, and like whatever the video is to go on and do is to whatever the video goes on and do. Um, so yeah, but then like all of a sudden it's like, oh well, this video is to be or this channel is to be labeled this, and here's a warning, and here's a, and then I'm like, okay, like I guess I'm not gonna go that far into describing things, because eventually me realizing what it all happened. But uh, if you like this show, go and check it out. Like, no judgment, because hey, freaking, um, again, whatever floats people's boat. If this is to um, interest people, then it interests people. Because there's all kinds of shows out there, and there's all kinds of movies, and so really at some point in time, like I've seen all kinds of stuff. I've seen all kinds of stuff, and so this is just another one of those kinds of shows. So that's it. I'm gonna get out of here. Bye everybody. Bye everybody.